Welcome to episode 9 in my Consciousness Awareness series. My name is Candace Sanderson, and I'm happy you've joined us. Welcome back. If you're new to the series, let's do a quick review. We've started building a toolbox for consciousness awareness. Because of the messenger's formula of TEA, thoughts, energy, action, we now understand how and why these tools work in both the 3D and the 5D. We've learned about the two operating systems that are always running in the background of our lives. One is a GPS system, and the other one is used for quality control. These systems automatically guide and fuel our TEA formula. But when we understand how they work, that is when we become empowered. We take control over our lives, including our out of body explorations. In the last episode, we built a dashboard to house these consciousness tools. And where the dashboard is located is just as important as the dashboard or the toolbox itself. We have it in our own special place that is just outside the realms of physicality. The question is, how do we access it? That is where our observer comes into play, and he or she leads us there. If you want more details, go back and review the previous episodes. Recently, we brought in some tools or instruments for protection. That included the acronym of REBAL, what we call the REBAL. That's what Bob Monroe from Monroe Institute called the resonant energy balloon. But it is a protective bubble of light energy that we can use to surround us. We had last time a two-part assignment. One assignment was to practice going to your place and turning on your open for business sign once you reach that place. Then I also ask you to simply observe and see if anything has changed in your place. We were also supposed to think of some different tools that we could use for protection, or perhaps another add-on for the reball or the bubble of light. Let me now share with you some of the responses that I received. Sherry contacted me and said that she practiced going to her place by using that breathing technique that we talked about in the past, breathing in through our heart while smiling. And the reason we do the smiling is that fuels the energy with positivity. That's that quality control. And when she would exhale, she was releasing any negative or stale energy. Sherry told me that on the third breath, each time her observer would show up. But this time, instead of being that, for her, typically negative or critical observer, this time her observer complimented her on her techniques. Now, once again, that's where smiling comes into this formula. It is fueling that energy, the TEA, the energy part in the T formula, with higher octane fuel. Sherry said she arrived at her place 3 consecutive days. Nothing changed that she could see on the first 2 trips, but on that third trip, she heard something when she entered her front door. It was a delicate tinkling noise. She looked around and found a dainty crystal wind chime on the ceiling near the front door. She said the movement from opening the door activated it. First of all, I have to say, congratulations to Sherry. Let's unpack her experience. As Sherry travels back and forth to her place, and she did that 3 days in a row, she is actually strengthening that connection in the 5D to the 3D. And that's our GPS system at work, making each trip not only easier to find where you're going, but quicker to navigate. But what I love about Sherry's example, it demonstrates that this is truly her place that is shared with her angels and guides because she did not build those chimes. Now, of course, she could have. This is your place, and you can do with it whatever you wish. But Sherry did not intentionally do that. Instead, the chimes seemed to have just manifested on their own. When I connect with my guidance team, I love it when they instigate the connection. Otherwise, especially when I was new to this, it's so easy to doubt yourself and to think, oh, you're just making this up. You're not, of course, but it can feel that way. It at least did to me, especially when I began. But it always seemed more, I don't know, genuine, I guess, if the connection was spontaneous, just like Sherry's wind chimes. So each time you visit your place, take the time to just look around. What's different? What details do you notice that you did not see before? But use all of your senses to explore, like Sherry. She heard the crystal chimes before she saw them. As your place morphs and changes, you'll notice that it feels more solid. It feels better defined. Why? Because each trip that you make to your place, you're actually going a little deeper into the realms of the non-physical with each trip. What is something is also happening to your energy body as you make these trips. Your energy body is becoming more and more accustomed, more acclimated to these finer and subtler vibrations. You're learning to actually navigate the 5D. And the farther you travel into that 5D space, the more you change in the 3D when you come back. Thank you, Sherry, for your comments. Now, let me share another comment. This was from Robert. Robert talked about an add-on for protection. He said he uses the bubble of light energy, especially at work, but he added armor on the outside of his reball, like the heavy armor you might see in a tank. He said that he actually could feel that added protection. And now when he comes home from work, he's noticed that he has more energy. Bravo, Robert. Your bubble of protection is working exactly as it should. It's not only protecting him from the outside influences, such as at work that might be negative, it's also keeping his energy field, his personal energy field intact. So his connections with other people no longer drain him. That's why he has more energy when he comes home. So Sherry and Robert, I want to thank each of you for sharing with me and keep up the good work. Now let's go to another set of tools. We've looked at some of the tools for protection, but let's view those tools of movement that help us move and navigate to and through the 5D. And by default, they also help us in the 3D. My dashboard is built in a semicircle. I have my tools for protection on the left, and I have my movement tools in the middle and to the right of my semicircle. When I enter my place, I turn on my open for business sign. And for me, that is a flashing pink neon sign. And when I turn it on, it activates my entire place. Lights, camera, action. My place is called the Twinkling Star. It's named after what used to be an ice cream shop where I grew up in Paducah, Kentucky. It later became a restaurant and a bar. I don't even know if it's still open. But for me, it's like a coffee shop, and it's mine. It's my place. When I turn on that open for business sign, there is a star above the roof that comes to life. My place literally becomes the twinkling star. Like Sherry's crystal chimes, that star spontaneously appeared one day. And now this star illuminates when I turn on the open for business sign. When I go to my dashboard, which is in the center of the front room, I have a flare gun tucked in an opening in the dashboard so I can easily access the handle. And I use my flare gun for specific intentions. If I want to connect with an angel or a guide, for example, or maybe with a loved one who's passed, I place that intention into the flare gun and then I shoot it skyward. Think of an intention like an invitation. We send invitations. Invitations do not work if we keep them on our dining room table. I word the intention positively. In other words, I say, I will meet with, and I'll use the name of a specific person or an angel or a guide. I don't say, I want to meet with them because want only attracts more want or lack. And that's important. So remember to state your intention in a positive manner. But then I shoot that flare gun and I watch its smoky path as it goes into the sky. And then its bright burst is when it actually becomes a beacon for that thought to manifest into action, the A in the TEA formula. Okay, let's get to some of the tools we use for movement to and within the 5D. Is there a way to rapidly and efficiently launch into the 5D? Yes, absolutely. And one of my favorite tools for that is the ladder of enlightenment. I described that in my first book, The Reluctant Messenger, in a chapter called Changing Perspectives. A few months after I began channeling, I had this vision that was so real, yet it was also so odd and strange, so much so that I almost did not include it in the first book. But it felt disingenuous not to include it, so I thought, okay, I will. There was no way to know that this bizarre vision would be validated almost 3 years later, just as the Reluctant Messenger's manuscript was ready to be sent to the editors. But I had this vision of a ladder made of metal circles, and this ladder reached straight into the sky. During this vision, by the way, which occurred, I was sitting actually at my dining room table having a cup of coffee, and it was even decaf coffee. But I dropped into this vision for no reason that I was aware of. But in this vision, time did not exist. Now, my observers there watching as another aspect of me is actually in the vision, and I start climbing this ladder. I was totally obsessed with climbing. I did not know why. I just knew I had to climb. So climb I did. Forever. There was no time in this 5D space, so I really had no idea how long I'd been there. Was it months? Was it years? Was it actually lifetimes? I didn't know. But eventually, I started noticing a couple things. First of all, the ladder started with these rungs, these circles, spaced far apart. But very gradually, very, very gradually, they started getting closer together. And eventually they started overlapping. And that's when I realized when I reached the rung above me, that part of the circle that I would grab, it looked like a smile. And with that realization, I began to smile. And immediately a message came, and it described those circular rungs of the ladder as stepping stones leading to enlightenment. And I had this aha moment. Oh, This is a ladder of enlightenment. And with each rung that I climbed, I started feeling more and more bliss. The messenger said that I would know when I reached the top of the ladder when the quote, smile becomes a full circle. When I finally reached that point, that top of the ladder of enlightenment, I can see myself, I'm standing on it, and I'm perfectly balanced. I feel whole. I just feel wonderful. And without warning, and I'm a little afraid of heights, I was so surprised when I saw myself swan dive off the ladder. And I'm in like ultra slow motion, like an astronaut in deep space, and I'm slowly spiraling away, head over heels, away from that ladder of enlightenment, which had been my home for so long. As I floated, I was pure bliss, absolute love, and I felt transformed. The boundaries of my body started to disappear, but I realized I was still there. The real me was still here. My soul, my spirit, my essence. At the same time, I was both nothing and everything. And then I realized I had become light. I was a being of light, floating in this beautiful void of pure potential. I was in this void that was primordial. It was before creation. It was the substance of creation. And then I heard the chanting of the word Om. Then the messenger said, this is the connection to Om, all having to do with vibratory status. After this, I Googled Om. I was blown away by what I read. One of the sources, I still remember what she said. She said, the sound of Om is a vibration from which everything in the universe emanates. She said that form and creation come from that vibration, and that Om is the most elemental of all vibrations. She said, it is the sound of the void. And I couldn't believe what I was reading, because all of this was occurring within a void. When I read it, it gave me cold chills. But the next validation was even more upfront and personal, but I had to wait 3 years before that validation arrived. I was putting the final touches on the manuscript that would become this first book, The Reluctant Messenger, before, I was ready to send it to the editors, when I got a surprise gift from one of my friends, Gail. I met Gail at a program at Monroe Institute a couple of years before. We both attended a program called OBE Intensive, and it was led by OBE experiencer and expert William Buellman, who is one of the funniest men I've ever met. He is not only very well experienced, but he's hilarious. But Gail sent me a book called Dying to Wake Up by Rajiv Parti. He's a medical doctor whose life transformed when he had a very extensive and profound NDE, near-death experience. When I read the book, I about flipped out at the similarities with my experience. First of all, Dr. Parti had an experience during his NDE with something that he called a ladder of enlightenment. That validation in itself was remarkable, but there was so much more. When Dr. Parti reached the top of the ladder, he met with a being of light. When I reached the top of the ladder, I became a being of light. As Dr. Parti approached this being of light, He heard the chant of the word Om, just like I did. Dr. Partee also described drifting weightlessly like an astronaut in a timeless void, exactly as I had described, even using the same words. There were actually more similarities, but you get the idea. And to think I had considered not including this experience in my first book. I think this is a good example of how the universe works. It provides when you least expect it. So let me bring this back to our dashboard and our consciousness tools. My ladder of those big circles will telescope down until it's a flat pile of rings, and then it shrinks down until it's about the diameter, I don't know, of a dinner plate. I hang it on a hook on the right side of my dashboard. When I'm ready to use it, I grab the ring and I toss it like a lasso, throwing it out, not straight up, but like maybe a 45-degree angle, and I watch it expand. I can't see where it ends or even if it ends, but it actually locks into place and it becomes a solid structure. Then I drop back and I make a running start. And as I hit that first rung, like going down the slide, but I slide upward very fast and I shoot off the top of the ladder where I immediately drop into that cosmic void where I am a part of everything and nothing all at the same time. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Monroe Institute, that cosmic void is more than likely focus 15. I reverse engineered all of my tools. During a meditation or a vision, these tools spontaneously showed up and they took me places. But now I can actually use them to return. But you can design your own as well too. Perhaps you board a rocket ship to launch you into the ethers. That makes a little more sense than a ladder of enlightenment. And if you use a rocket, you can put a representation of that rocket on your dashboard, maybe just a little toy rocket. Remember, TEA, thoughts, energy, action. Build it and they will come. Just as I doubted the ladder of enlightenment, thinking it was a fantasy and too bizarre to put in my book, only to discover this powerful validation later, I want you to learn from my mistakes. I want you to trust what you receive. Use it, and you'll notice that the tool will become stronger. What else could you use to reach that launch velocity other than a ladder of enlightenment or a rocket? How about a slingshot? Put them wherever you want, wherever you can see them, but also realize that their positions might change without you intentionally moving them. You can also have multiple tools for the same purpose and see which one works best for you. Maybe a trampoline works better for connecting with people who have passed, and a rocket works with meeting with cosmic beings. Maybe the ladder is for meeting with guides. You decide, have fun with it. Another tool for a movement that I use is a Merkaba. That is a star tetrahedron. I had no idea what that was until I researched it after my experiences with it. Imagine two identical triangles, one pointing up and then the other pointing down. Now, fuse them together, and one spins in one direction and the other in the opposite direction. Now we have a star tetrahedron. Next step, let's make it 3D. Instead of a flat triangle, let's insert pyramids. In my second book, The Reluctant Messenger Returns, I have a few chapters about meeting Archangel Metatron, and he came to me in this shape. Now, I knew none of this as I met with him, so imagine my surprise when my research validated that Metatron indeed moves by way of this star tetrahedron. And when this star tetrahedron becomes a vehicle of light, that is when it is known as a Merkaba. When I want to connect with him, with Metatron, I open a little latch on my control panel, and a hologram of a Merkaba floats upward. And as it increases in size, my energy body slips into the center of that Merkaba, and I am immediately transported to the realms where Metatron is. In my first book, I described that area. It's called the realms of light. The ladder of enlightenment and the Merkaba, for me, are very effective tools for navigating the 5D, where everything is energy. When you imagine, you use your 5 physical senses, but they've expanded into the unseeable using the physical eyes. Like feeling the wind on your face or smelling the scent of a flower, you don't have to see to know that it's real. So I'm asking you to trust what you imagine. Know that your thoughts can manifest into action. I didn't discover that. It took the messengers who appealed to my scientific background as a psychologist who presented me with the TEA, thoughts, energy, action formula. But it's the power of imagination that allows us to travel in out-of-body experiences or even lucid dreams. I came across these tools through my experiences with the messengers. Only later did I realize I could reuse them as tools. Now I have a better understanding not only of the 3D, but the 5D world. Viewing life through the lens of energy takes the woo-woo out of these seemingly magical events that occur. It also empowers us, making us realize our part in this formula called life. I am so grateful for your support. Thank you for following, for subscribing, for commenting. If you've read any of my books and liked them, I would love to have you review them on Amazon. Until next time, remember how powerful you are and that your thoughts do matter. Think positive thoughts, be kind, and don't forget to smile. Goodbye.